Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. When the last guests had left, my wife and I exchanged quiet goodbyes on our porch. Every holiday season, Camilla and I opened our home to neighbors, and this tradition had gradually attracted more and more guests. What had started as a small gathering for 4 neighboring couples eventually grew into a large event. This year, over 40 people gathered in our home, about a third of whom weren't even from our neighborhood. I assumed the increase in guests was due to the relaxed atmosphere we created, a night with plenty of drinks and a few light-hearted games that had become a signature part of the evening. Each year, the games got a bit bolder, though they never crossed the line into anything inappropriate. Most of the guests were like us, working parents between 35 and 45, many of whom balanced raising kids with building careers. Our parties were far from wild college blowouts, but they gave friends a chance to unwind and relax a little. People brought more food than we could eat, and I, along with the other guys, made sure there was always enough to drink. Initially, I didn't mind when a few neighbors started inviting friends from outside, until this year. This time, Camilla decided to invite a few of her work colleagues without discussing it with me. Among them was Ron Stevens, her co-worker from the sales department. They'd been working together for about 7 years, and I had an uneasy feeling that their friendship had recently grown too close. Camilla and Ron often traveled together on business, attending lengthy sales conferences a few times a year. In the days leading up to the party, the tension over Ron had been building at home. His presence in our house soured my mood. I tried to keep myself busy, taking out the trash and tidying up, but eventually found myself in the kitchen where Camilla was finishing up the cleanup. I couldn't hold it in any longer and spoke up. "Why did you think it was a good idea to invite Ron and your colleagues to our neighborhood party?" "I like them," she replied calmly. "I thought they'd enjoy meeting our friends. They fit right in. Why does this bother you?" "Camilla, you know how I feel about your friendship with Ron, yet you brought him into our home without even giving me a heads up." "Joseph, this is my home too. I don't need your permission to invite someone to my party," she shot back. "So you think it's fine to humiliate me by bringing your buddy here, right in front of everyone, our friends and your co-workers? Didn't you see the way people were looking at us?" She shook her head, annoyed. "What are you even talking about? Ron is not my buddy, and no one was looking at us funny. You're letting jealousy cloud your judgment, and I'm tired of it." "Oh, really? Then explain why you sneaked upstairs with him. What was that about, Camilla? What needed discussing with Mr. Perfect up there?" "Are you kidding me? We weren't sneaking off anywhere. He just needed the bathroom and the one downstairs was occupied. We were gone for a minute, maybe 2. "Another lie," I shot back. "You were up there for over half an hour. Your friend Gail tried to distract me, probably so I wouldn't notice you slipping away with him." "You're just being ridiculous," she replied, rolling her eyes. "Gail was just making conversation. I don't know why you think she needed to do anything else." At the mention of lying, Camilla went silent, her sales skills unable to mask a lack of honesty. Her disregard for my feelings and the unexpected invitation of her friend was the last straw. I couldn't take it anymore. Without a word, I headed upstairs as she shouted after me, her voice echoing down the hallway. Once in the bathroom, I began packing my things, feeling the weight of her betrayal settle in my soul. As I was packing my things, my deodorant slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor. I bent down to pick it up, and at that moment, something in the trash can glinted gold. My heart skipped a beat, and my hand froze on the edge of the bin. Summoning the courage, I reached in and pulled out a small, shiny object. No, it was a contraceptive wrapper. And that changed everything. After the birth of our second child, I'd had a vasectomy, so we had no need for contraception. All the doubts I had been trying to push away suddenly became crystal clear. She was cheating on me. At that moment, Camilla burst into the bathroom, still accusing me of being paranoid. Slowly, I stood up, holding the wrapper between us like undeniable proof. Paranoia? No. This was irrefutable evidence. Her face changed, her eyes widened, then narrowed defensively. "Someone must have planted it as a joke," she claimed. "It's not what you think. Enough lying. I'm sick of it, Camilla." "Joseph, please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's some kind of misunderstanding, I swear." "Yes," I replied, gritting my teeth. "A huge mistake." "No, that's not what I meant. Please let me explain," she was nearly begging. "I think I know how this story goes," I cut her off. "You slipped away from the party to meet him while I was downstairs with your friends. Right here, in our home. Did that thrill you?" Despair clouded her face. "It wasn't like that. Please, just listen." She reached out to me, but I put the wrapper in my pocket and walked past her. Ignoring her desperate apologies, I went into the guest bedroom, shut the door, and locked it just as she reached for the handle. "Joseph, let me explain. It's not what you think," she pleaded from the other side of the door. Her voice grew louder, muffled by the door, her fists pounding as she begged me to listen. To drown her out, I turned on the TV and increased the volume until her pleas faded into the noise. Sleeping was impossible. Thoughts raced through my mind, replaying every late night at work, every business trip, every conference. Was Ron with her each time? The thoughts tormented me, robbing me of any peace. Memories of her frequent absences surfaced, each one now feeling like another stab of betrayal. Tears streamed down my face as I imagined explaining this to our daughters, telling them why their mother and father wouldn't be together anymore. How could she betray us like this? How could she hurt them and me so deeply? Had I driven her to this? I began questioning everything, our marriage, my role, every argument, every cold silence. Pain, confusion, anger, all of it crashed over me, pulling me under. Sleep didn't come at all. Finally, morning arrived, sunlight piercing through the blinds, cruelly reminding me that reality wasn't going anywhere. I rose, ready to do what had to be done. Pulling back the dresser, I unlocked the door and stepped into the hallway, prepared to face whatever lay ahead. I glanced to the side, barely shifting my position, and noticed Camilla lying on the bed, still immersed in sleep. Quietly closing the door behind me, I slipped into the guest bathroom to freshen up. Then, I dressed and headed to the kitchen, pouring myself a cup of coffee. Just as I was about to set my mug down on the table, Camilla entered, disheveled and tired, with red eyes and a flushed nose, probably from a mix of emotions and a hangover. Even in this state, she was beautiful, though a painful feeling stirred in my chest once again. How did we get here? "There's some coffee left," I mumbled, nodding toward the kitchen cupboard. Her mug was already set out, with the usual drop of skim milk, just how she liked it, a habit I couldn't shake despite everything that had happened. She poured herself some coffee and sat across from me. "Joseph," she began softly, "I really messed up. I thought I was being smart, that you'd see things differently, but now it's clear I just ruined everything. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve this." "Oh, thank you," I replied with sarcasm in my voice. "Thank you for allowing me to be angry. How generous of you. You bring your boyfriend into our home, where all our friends and your colleagues could see, and now you give me permission to be upset. Very thoughtful." "No, wait," she pleaded, her words spilling out as she stood up. She came over to me, gripped the edge of my chair, and turned it so she could sit on my lap, wrapping her arms around my neck. "Please, Joseph, just listen to me. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I turned away, dodging the kiss she tried to place on my cheek. Her voice trembled with desperation, and tears ran down her cheeks. Despite the anger boiling inside me, something held me back from pushing her away or telling her to leave. As much as it hurt, I knew I could never be cruel to her. Taking a deep breath, I slowly exhaled. "Fine, Camilla. 5 minutes. But get off me," I said coldly. 5 minutes. "But I'll stay here until I explain," she insisted, holding my gaze. I glanced at the clock. She took a deep breath as if gathering the courage before continuing. "It was so foolish. Last night was just a game, at least until Ron ruined everything." I raised an eyebrow. "Go on. You've been saying for months that you don't trust Ron, that I couldn't handle him. It was like you thought I'd fall for his advances, even though I told you countless times that he meant nothing to me. It felt like you saw me as some naive girl who'd fall for any trick." Seriously, Joseph? You think I'd choose someone like him? Or anyone else for that matter? She looked down, pausing before admitting, yes, he did try to make a move, just like others have. Even clients flirt sometimes, thinking I'd humor them for a successful deal. Joseph, let's clear something up. I'm fully aware of how I look, and the thoughts that can sometimes cross men's minds. But believe me, I never say yes, not once. I've learned how to decline in a way that doesn't hurt their pride, sometimes even with a smile if it helps. But it's always a firm, unwavering no. So, when your flirtation and fleeting comments became too persistent, as if it had happened 100 times before, I got fed up. I decided it was time to show you just how absurd your behavior was. That's why I asked Ron and Gail to help me. I wanted you to see me going upstairs with Ron. We timed it so you'd be busy with the ice, distracted but still able to catch a glimpse of us out of the corner of your eye. Gail was the obvious decoy to make sure you picked up on our setup. Everything worked as planned. Ron and I went upstairs. I walked ahead and he sat in my chair while I settled on the bed, waiting for you to barge in. But time passed, and you didn't show up. I waited, realizing you weren't going to come in and create a scene. Maybe it was the wine, but I misread everything. I thought you had finally given up. I started crying. Ron came over, hugged me, and I let my tears flow on his shoulder. After a while, I felt him gently stroking my back and hair. I came to my senses and tried to pull away, but he leaned in and kissed me. I froze, and he took it as consent. I pushed him away, breaking off the kiss, and when he tried to get closer again, I pressed harder on his chest until he got the message. I looked at him, furious, and asked what he thought he was doing. He just smirked and said, "Oh, come on. We both know this whole thing was just a setup to get me here. And now we're here, so let's not stand on ceremony." That's when I lost it. I took off my shoe and threw it at him, hitting him in the chest. Only then did he get the point. He backed off, mumbling some excuse, and hid in the bathroom. I think he threw a condom in the trash and ran some water to keep up appearances. I was seething with anger. Later, I told Gail everything, and she gave him a good scolding before leading him out of the room. If you don't believe me, I can call Gail right now. She'll tell you everything in detail. I got up, gently lifted her off my lap, and went to pour myself a coffee. She followed me, standing beside me. "Joseph, please talk to me. I know you're angry, but I didn't betray you. I told you everything. I didn't want anything from him. Yes, he was drunk and crossed a line, but I stopped him. I would never betray you. The kiss wasn't part of my plan, and ending up in that situation was the last thing I wanted. He's an idiot, but I don't want a work scandal. Gail and I will handle it on Monday. I'm so sorry, my dear. Can you ever forgive me?" I studied her face carefully. "Let's clarify something. You planned this whole scene on the stairs for me to see? You thought I'd get so angry that I'd burst in here and find you two just sitting there as if nothing happened? This was all set up to make a fool out of me, to make me feel ridiculous for my suspicions? Gail was supposed to gather everyone to watch my reaction. No, Joseph, that's not it. The plan was to humiliate me, to shame me a little in front of everyone so I'd finally stop doubting you, to make me promise that I'd never suspect you again. Joseph, I just wanted to show you how wrong you were about Ron, that your suspicions were pointless, and how much it hurts me to think you could believe I betrayed you. I thought a little game might help you see my side. But when you didn't react, it threw me off. I was so upset that you didn't fall for the trick that I got carried away trying to prove my point. So, you wanted to teach me a lesson, didn't you? I asked, staring intently at her face. Show me who's in charge. Put me in my place. Camilla's face turned pale. What lesson? What are you talking about? She muttered, stumbling over her words. Don't pretend like you don't understand, Camilla, I continued, keeping my eyes fixed on her. You let Ron be with you in our bed while I was downstairs, playing the role of the clueless husband. I suppose that felt like a satisfying revenge for all those times you thought I was holding you back. My voice rang with brutal finality. I already told you everything, she replied defensively. Oh yes, you told me your version, of course. Convenient, neat, while conveniently leaving out a few important details. I bet you and Gail rehearsed that story well enough for it to sound convincing. She clenched her fists. Joseph, I don't know what you're trying to prove. Listen, I admitted my mistake. Can't we just leave this in the past? No, I said, pulling a small plastic bag from my pocket. You missed this. This proves that I can't trust a single word you say. Camilla's eyes shifted to the bag, trying to make out what was inside. I lifted it slightly, turning it so the light hit its contents, watching her eyes narrow. Her face changed, her mouth opened slightly as she realized what I was holding. You really don't trust me, do you? No, I answered coldly. Not after last night. I woke up and everything was right there in front of me, as clear as day. You didn't even try to hide it. Her lips trembled. I'm so sorry. Truly I am. You're right, okay? I was drunk, I lost control. I wanted to hurt you, I was so angry. She lowered her gaze, her face flushed with shame. I let Ron touch me in our bed because at that moment it felt like revenge. Revenge? Humiliation with Ron? That was your plan? I shook my head. That was just stupid. She began to sob, and I watched her, weighing everything. Could this truly be the end for us? Doubts overwhelmed me, a nagging suspicion that something had been wrong for a long time. I had sensed Camilla growing distant, changing, but why? When did I first suspect she was seeing Ron behind my back? What had driven her to think that an affair with Ron would somehow achieve her goal? Did she truly believe this was the right way to punish me? This wasn't the Camilla I had married. Since when had she turned intimacy into a weapon, a tool to wound rather than something we both cherished? I looked at her sobbing, feeling both anger and a strange pity. How had we allowed things to spiral this far? She had become cold and calculating, and I knew who was behind it all. Gail. Gail, her mentor, the one notorious for outplaying men at their own game, never losing, always getting what she wanted. Gail, the strong, ruthless, and independent divorcee who had taken Camilla under her wing. Gail, who had taught her to be unyielding, to see every encounter as a survival game. How could I not have noticed? I truly admired the way she took on the role of a leader in the sales department. Over the years, she gathered countless awards, bonuses, and recognitions. Gail was her most devoted fan. The additional income became a blessing for us, allowing us to save for the kids' education and comfortably cover all expenses. But at what cost? I had to know the truth. I began to clap slowly, deliberately, with pauses. Bravo, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Well done. Quite the performance. Clever move, I'll admit. Gail taught you well. When you realized you were losing with Ron, you changed tactics and switched to this emotional apology, hoping I'd fixate on a single mistake. A mistake made in a moment of frustration, clouded by a couple of glasses of wine, one that you thought the father of your children might forgive for the sake of the family. It's cunning, I'll admit. You're banking on my attachment to the kids to outweigh my anger over your mistake. And why wouldn't you? I continued, barely holding back. You admitted it was a scheme to humiliate me. You showed remorse and apologized. What more could you do? The tears disappeared. Camilla froze, her gaze locked on my face, trying to catch even a hint of where I was heading. She was silent, but I could almost hear her thoughts racing, struggling to regain control of the situation. Camilla, I believe what you told me about Ron and what happened at that party, I finally said. Sorry for suspecting you of cheating. I now understand it was just that one time. Yes, only once, she replied quickly, her voice filled with humility. A foolish mistake, I swear it will never happen again. She came closer, looking at me pleadingly. Please, let's just leave this in the past. I love you. Please. Even if I could forgive the humiliation and that incident with Ron, I responded, there's something else. What do you mean, something else? What are you getting at? She asked, a flicker of panic in her eyes. It took me too long to piece everything together. I should have realized when I met Gail and started hearing rumors, but I trusted you. Later, when my instincts began warning me that something was off, I assumed it was just about Ron. Ron, I told you it was a mistake. You have no reason to worry. I shook my head, tired of the lies and half-truths. I didn't have solid evidence, but I knew. Deep down, I knew I'd lost her long ago. The woman I once loved with all my heart was no longer here. Gail had shown her an easy path to success, and Camilla had chosen to follow it. She broke her promises on her own, opting for this life. And for what? A bigger salary? Feeding her vanity? A fleeting thrill? It didn't matter why. Camilla, I know who you've become. I know the real reason behind your success in sales. The shock on her face told me everything. It was just a moment, but it was enough to reveal the truth before she tried to hide it behind a forced smile. Joseph, dear, I thought we'd already moved past this, she said, trying to sound calm. I confessed to that one mistake with Ron. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not sure exactly what you think you understand, but I'm tired of all this chaos and just want to return to a normal life. Right now, we need to pull ourselves together, get things in order, and bring your daughters back. They may enjoy spending time with your parents, but I know they miss you, their father. And that's exactly what we did. I spent the rest of that day with my girls, savoring each moment and planning my next steps. By Monday, I was in my lawyer's office, initiating the divorce process on grounds of irreconcilable differences. Though she warned me not to set my hopes too high, she filed a petition for joint custody, with me as the primary guardian. I decided to serve Camilla the papers at her workplace, hoping to draw Gail's attention. The same day, right after I confirmed Camilla had been served, my phone rang. Joseph, have you lost your mind? She immediately demanded an explanation, asking if I was really going to divorce her over this whole situation with Ron. She couldn't understand it, calling the idea absurd and claiming it was something we could easily overcome. You're just hurting the girls. You love them too much to do this. Punish me if you must, but don't tear our family apart after 15 years of marriage, she pleaded. Camilla, I've already told you it's not about Ron. I can't stay married to the woman you've become, I replied. Her voice grew more desperate. I'm genuinely concerned for you. I know it's hard for you to forgive my mistake, but a divorce will only harm the girls. Let's try to work this out. Therapy, maybe? I'll set it up if I have to, she offered. Just sign the papers, Camilla. You'll get the freedom you want, and the girls and I will manage, I said firmly. They can stay with me, and you can visit them when you're not traveling. In your dreams. There won't be any divorce, and you're not taking my girls from me. Stop this nonsense or you'll regret it, she shot back. Then she went silent, her tone softening into one of pleading. Joseph, I love you. Don't force me into a fight. An hour later, Gail called, just as I'd expected. Tell your protege to sign the papers, I said coldly. She doesn't have another choice. If she signs, the girls stay with me, and you both get to continue your lives as usual. Gail chuckled. You're delusional. You don't have any real evidence aside from that one slip-up with Ron, and it has nothing to do with me. Evidence isn't necessary. All I need to do is make a loud accusation. She's careless enough for a competitor to find something real, and then an investigation would follow. I doubt you want that hanging over you. You're willing to hurt your daughters just to get revenge on her? If something about their mother comes out, they'll suffer. She'll sign, or I'll make it public. And Gail, if this goes out, you'll go down with her. Everyone knows you mentored her in your company's sales department, where you're already too old for the role. I'm sure the board will be interested to learn about your mentorship methods. Fine, I'll talk to her. She'll listen to me. 5 days later, my lawyer received the signed divorce documents. Camilla moved into a cozy apartment a couple of miles away. She spends time with the girls often, attending their school events and sports games. We barely speak, and as far as I know, she's still relying on her charm to close deals and rack up awards. Last week, I happened to see Camilla and Gail leaving an upscale restaurant. I had just parked when I saw them walking toward Gail's car. Gail opened the car door, then turned and pulled Camilla close for a long, drawn-out kiss. I sat in my car, stunned for a moment. Camilla had surprised me once again. It turned out she was attracted to women. It explained a lot about her connection with Gail. Honestly, I was glad to be free of her. I couldn't understand why she'd lied to me. She was entangled not only with her clients, but also with Gail. In that moment of fury, I took a photo of them kissing and circulated it among Camilla and Gail's colleagues. 2 days later, the photo of Camilla kissing Gail reached management, and soon, Both were fired. I had spent 15 years with a woman I never truly knew. I got my revenge and it gave me peace. Now, I needed to focus on taking care of my children. That was my ultimate purpose in life. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. A close friend tipped me off that my wife of 27 years was unfaithful. It was Owen, my longtime buddy, who made the call while I was at work. He told me he had just seen Violet, my wife, walking hand in hand with another man into a shabby hotel on the edge of town. He'd even taken some photos on his phone. Naturally, I didn't believe it at first. It seemed absurd, and I thought there had to be some reasonable explanation for why Violet would be entering a hotel room in the middle of a workday with someone else. My name's Joseph, by the way. I asked Owen to send the photos immediately. Staring at the screen, I was stunned. There was no doubt. It was her. That night, I tried to keep things casual and asked her how her day had gone, if she'd stepped out for lunch. To my shock, she lied smoothly, saying she had eaten lunch at her desk. I pressed her, asking if she was absolutely sure she hadn't gone out. The way she responded threw me off even more. She got defensive, asking angrily if I was accusing her of lying. Her reaction was devoid of guilt, and I felt trapped. The pictures and her denial didn't give me the concrete proof I wanted. So, like many husbands suspecting infidelity, I turned to a private investigator. What I encountered at the PI's office was unexpected. Instead of a stereotypical dim, smoky room with a grizzled ex-cop, I was met by two tech-savvy young professionals in a modern office space. Their expertise and knowledge of digital investigation impressed me, though their services didn't come cheap. But what they lacked in affordability, they made up for in effectiveness. 2 weeks later, I was back at their office, and they handed me a folder with a complete report, including photos and video evidence. The details were brutal. Violet wasn't seeing just one other man, but two. One was a co-worker, a salesman named Julian Taylor, whom she'd been involved with for over a year. The other was Charles Jackson, a mechanic she'd met when getting her car fixed a few months back. With all the proof in hand, I went straight to a divorce attorney. If this had been a one-off affair, maybe I could have found it in me to forgive her. But learning she'd been seeing other men for over a year made that impossible. The investigator's report included transcripts from her meetings with Julian, suggesting he was far from her first affair. From these conversations, it was clear that Violet was enjoying her double life. She liked the stable, secure life I'd built for us while savoring her time with other men. Violet had a job, but it was my business that gave us a comfortable lifestyle. It funded our sons' and daughters' education at their prestigious universities. Sitting in the attorney's office was eye-opening. I learned that divorce laws didn't much care about who was at fault. They were designed to divide assets equally, often to the husband's detriment. My lawyer was sympathetic but confirmed the harsh reality. Violet would likely walk away with half of everything, and I might even need to sell the business to settle the financial split. And on top of that, I'd be paying alimony for her to continue her life with other men. At least our kids were out of the house by then. As for our home, she'd probably get that too. After leaving the attorney's office, I felt a mix of rage and despair. That evening, I had a meeting scheduled with my accountant, Jerry, to discuss some positive news. My business was about to cross the $10 million valuation mark, thanks to 3 major new accounts. Halfway through his presentation, though, Jerry stopped and gave me a concerned look. "Joseph, I'm giving you incredible news. Your hard work has finally paid off, and you look miserable," he said. I took a deep breath and explained the situation. Violet's betrayal, the lawyer's prediction that she would get half, and the possibility I'd have to dissolve the company to pay her off. Not to mention, I'd be stuck with monthly alimony that would fund her life with her lovers. At least the kids were out of the picture. Then, there was the house. I'd probably lose that too. Jerry sympathized, offering to postpone our meeting until I felt more focused. He packed up and headed back to his office, but later that day, he called me back. "Joseph, can you stop by my office on your way home? I have an idea." I was willing to delay facing Violet, so I drove over. In his office, Jerry shut the door and looked at me seriously. "First, I need to confirm something," he began. "You've always told me that Violet had very little involvement or interest in your business. Is that still true?" I nodded, still not fully understanding where he was heading. "So, you're saying she has no clue that the worth of your company is about to skyrocket?" he continued. "That's correct," I replied. "I've never really discussed the business with her much, and honestly, we haven't talked about anything significant lately. But what exactly are you suggesting here?" Jerry raised a hand, signaling patience. "Just hear me out. One last question. She's unaware that you know about her infidelity, correct?" "Right," I confirmed. "I haven't confronted her or mentioned a word about it." "Then your solution is clear. Divorce," he stated plainly. "Haven't you been listening to me?" I protested. "Your lawyer's right that you'd be at a disadvantage if you go into a divorce head-on," he clarified. "But if you approach this strategically, that changes. You need her to agree to your terms." "How would I even make that happen?" I asked, frustrated. "Blackmail her with photos and videos? That's not going to work. She's too wrapped up in her lifestyle to care." "You're missing the point," Jerry insisted. "She'll agree to the terms because she won't realize what's really going on. Have you ever heard of a tax divorce?" Perplexed, I shook my head. "It was a trend a while back," he explained. "Couples would get divorced temporarily to benefit from tax breaks. In December, you'd see a rush of these so-called tax divorces among couples where one partner made significantly more money. After the savings were in place, they'd often remarry on an extravagant trip. Most of those loopholes have closed now," he added, "but I doubt your wife knows the ins and outs of tax law, and considering what you've told me, it sounds like she's more interested in her freedom and the lifestyle you provide than a legitimate separation. She's even talked about quitting her job just to have more time to fool around," I admitted. "That's perfect," Jerry responded, grinning. "We'll use her own greed to our advantage. You can tell her your business is about to grow substantially, but there will be considerable tax implications. Mention that you might need to travel more, and she could soon quit her job altogether. That way," he continued, "she'll see herself in the best of both worlds, more free time and more money. Present the tax divorce as a mutual benefit, with a remarriage celebration in Hawaii and a financial boost. She'll be all for it." "Is this actually legal?" I asked, skeptical. "Absolutely," Jerry assured. "We'll make it official, with fair terms. Your business remains yours, and there's no alimony. I'll get a draft going and have it to you soon. It'll work. Just make sure she doesn't suspect you're aware of the affair." I knew that would be the hardest part, keeping my contempt for Violet hidden. I had nearly lost my composure when she started mentioning she'd have to work late on Tuesday and Thursday nights. The private investigator's report revealed the truth. Tuesday was for the mechanic, Thursday for the salesman. Despite my anger, I managed to keep it together, masking my frustration with subtle sarcasm. A week later, Jerry handed me the finalized documents. Along with the paperwork, he included a report I could show Violet, highlighting the savings we'd see and outlining the necessary steps, like transferring the house to her name. Luckily, the discussion would take place on Wednesday, far from her meet-up days. When she walked in, I was at the kitchen table with 3 organized folders laid out. "Honey, we need to talk," I said, knowing those words would immediately grab her attention. Her face went pale, her eyes darting toward the folders in unease. "Is something wrong?" she stammered, her voice wavering. Calmly, I opened the first folder. "No." "This is a good plan," I began, holding Violet's gaze. "But before you react, I need you to hear me out fully." I paused, watching her expression carefully. "The company's been doing well, as you know, and it's about to get even better. I've managed to provide for us comfortably so far, but most of our profits have had to go right back into the business. Now, though, it's finally paying off. The only hitch? Taxes." I took a deep breath before continuing. "I met with my accountant, and he found a way for us to save around $50,000 this year." Violet's eyes widened. "50,000? We're not breaking any laws, right?" She sounded both eager and concerned. "Not at all. He assured me it's completely legal and actually pretty common," I replied, hoping to ease her mind. But there's a catch. We need to do something unconventional. I pulled out a second folder, letting it sit in front of her. It's called a tax divorce. I saw her gasp, but I quickly gestured for her to stay calm. Listen to me, Violet. People do this all the time. It's a way to avoid what they call the marriage penalty. I explained, with our new revenue, that penalty is going to be a lot more costly. My accountant Jerry told me that many of his clients divorce in December, and then, with the money they save, treat themselves to a luxury vacation in January where they get remarried. The government made one change, though. You have to stay divorced for at least 6 months to avoid fraud. Jerry mentioned it specifically in case you looked it up. Violet was still reeling, her face a mask of disbelief. I realized I needed to switch tactics. It's just paperwork, really, I reassured her. Jerry did say that we might need to stay divorced the entire year to maximize the benefits in the second year, which could really pay off. I leaned in a little. It means a few more hours on my end, a few more business trips, but in the long run, this could really make a difference for both of us. You might even be able to leave your job if you want, I suggested. Her expression softened, and I could almost see her weighing the benefits. The idea of more money, and the freedom that came with it, was tempting. She glanced up at me, curiosity beginning to override her shock. So what exactly would this entail? She asked slowly. I opened the third folder. We'd need to go through a legal divorce. We'd have to divide our assets on paper. I pointed to the paperwork. I'd sign over the house to you with a quitclaim deed, and we'd split our bank accounts. I'll have all the utilities transferred into your name, though the payments would still come from my account. Nothing would really change for us, except that we'd end up with a lot more money. Violet's face shifted as if she was about to argue, but I decided to preempt her. Look, I know our marriage means a lot to you. We don't have to do this if you're uncomfortable, I said, letting my words hang in the air. We could just pay the extra taxes. I could tell she was on the verge of agreeing. No, you're right, she finally said, nodding. I don't like the idea of a divorce, but if it's just on paper, the benefits are worth it. Suppressing a smile, I kept my voice level. I'm glad you see it that way. Jerry did mention that we'd need to move quickly if we want this to work. There's a petition to sign and a few authorizations to get this rolling. After that, he'll handle everything else. He also suggested you read over everything before signing, I added, sliding the papers toward her. Oh, and I've got a trip starting Friday that'll run through the weekend. I knew this little detail would help sway her, my dutiful wife who seemed increasingly invested in her own interests. Violet picked up the paperwork without hesitation. I'll go through this tonight and sign so you can get it back to your accountant, she said, nodding. She signed the documents before I left for the trip I'd mentioned. In truth, there was no business trip, but I needed time to set up a few things and confirm whether she'd jump at the opportunity. As expected, she couldn't resist. I had discreet cameras installed in the house, and within an hour of my departure, the mechanic was there, right in our bedroom. The divorce was finalized just as anticipated, with the only significant shift being the end of our intimate relationship. Violet inquired about this a few times, but I always deflected, citing job stress and the demands of new clients. She didn't press further, likely because her 2 boyfriends were meeting her needs. Despite having no desire to witness her with other men, I kept track of her activities, not out of jealousy, but to be sure she hadn't uncovered my intentions. I had grown numb to her infidelity. It wasn't what I cared about. My concern was whether she'd figured out my plan. The divorce officially concluded when the judge signed the final decree a week after we filed, but there were legal limits on when modifications could be made and for what reasons. Jerry, my attorney, advised that we'd need to wait a full 180 days before making any irreversible moves. As that milestone neared, I was ready to put everything behind me. I arranged a meeting with Jerry to discuss the cleanest way to leave. I wanted out, but I also wanted her disgrace to be public. I wanted her cheating laid bare for everyone to see. Listen, Joseph, Jerry cautioned. If you make it obvious that you knew about her affairs before the divorce, she could argue it was a setup to shield assets. That could backfire. But she's the one cheating. She should be the one punished, I argued. Isn't there a way to ensure that? Let's not take any unnecessary risks. Here's the simplest plan, Jerry replied. Catch her with one of her boyfriends. Snap a few pictures to back it up, then walk away. Just don't remarry. With that evidence alone, you can cut ties cleanly. That's it? She just goes on like nothing happened? Well, not exactly. She won't have any stake in your company, no alimony, and you're free of her. Isn't that what you wanted? I frowned, still unsatisfied. There must be a way to humiliate her without compromising the financial split. Jerry held up his hand. Actually, you have footage of her carrying on after the divorce, don't you? I nodded. Then use that. Let people know you're not remarrying, cut off the utilities, and stop her money supply. Drop the news about her boyfriends to their wives. Just sit back and watch the fallout. I smiled, finally seeing an opportunity. I could claim I discovered her affairs after the divorce. This would still work, right? Joseph, Jerry replied. This would be the perfect time to cut her off. We're about to secure the first of those big contracts, which means serious money coming your way. I suggest you find your own place, move out, and let her sit in the silence for a week before breaking the news. I paused, considering one final complication. My kids. How do I handle them in all this? They're the hardest part of this equation. They might side with you, Jerry replied. After all, she's always preached about honesty and loyalty, hasn't she? Remember how she once exposed our daughter for going to a concert with another guy, claiming dishonesty ruins relationships? Jerry chuckled. Quite the hypocrite, isn't she? Your daughter might actually feel betrayed when she learns the truth. One more thing, Jerry added. There's nothing you need to sign to finalize this. You're free. Just stop paying her bills and it's done. I left our meeting, fully committed to ending things with Violet. I'd already scoped out an apartment and was ready to move within the week. But before taking the final step, I wanted to speak to both my children. Both were in their respective college towns taking summer classes. My son Derek quickly took my side. He was furious with his mother, but agreed to stay quiet until I'd officially moved out. My daughter Jennifer, however, was harder to convince. She struggled to accept that her mother could ever do something so deceptive. She had always preached honesty and fidelity, so my daughter found it hard to believe her mother would betray me. Reluctantly, I showed her just enough evidence to reveal the truth. The moment she saw the videos, anger ignited in her. Jennifer was ready to confront her mother directly. I managed to convince her to hold off until I could move out of the house. Once back in town, everything was in place. The new apartment lease was signed, and my second contract was almost finalized. In 2 days, the furniture would arrive, and I'd finally begin my plan. The first step was simple enough: move out while Violet was at work. With the help of a rental truck and some friends, I packed everything I wanted: my keepsakes, my tools, my personal belongings, but none of the furniture. I also removed the cameras I had discreetly set up around the house. Violet had grown so accustomed to my absence that she didn't even notice I'd left for days. It was only when I carried out the second part of my plan that she realized something was off. I sent untraceable emails to the wives of her 2 lovers, the mechanic and the salesman, attaching video files of them with Violet. I felt a twinge of guilt, knowing the upheaval these families were about to face. But I hadn't started this mess. I was just finishing it. Within 30 minutes of sending those emails, Violet left me a voicemail asking me to call her, likely under the impression I was still out of town. Her calls became increasingly frantic as she noticed my clothes and personal items were missing. I ignored each one, along with her flood of text messages. My children reached out to me, telling me how their mother had called in a panic, asking if they'd heard from me. Both of them covered for me, claiming they hadn't spoken to me in a while. They tried pressing her for details, but she shared nothing, refusing even to explain why she was so desperate to find me. I let her sit in uncertainty for 2 more days. On Thursday, I decided it was time. Knowing she'd likely be home alone, shaken by the fallout of her affairs, I knocked on the door of the house that was once ours. Violet opened the door, bewildered. "Joseph, why are you knocking? This is your home. Where have you been? I've been calling you for days." I met her gaze coolly. No, Violet, this is your house now. You have the title after our divorce. May I come in? She stammered a bit, then invited me inside. What's all this nonsense? We need to talk about when we're getting remarried. I'm done with these games and this fake divorce. Good, I replied, smiling. That's exactly what I want to talk about. Her expression flickered between anger and anxiety. Our divorce isn't a game, Violet. It's very real and legal, and you've certainly been making the most of it. A hint of fear crept into her eyes, but she tried to mask it with indignation. What are you talking about? I told you I'm ready to move past this and renew our vows. I couldn't help but laugh. Oh, so you noticed my things are gone? I said, barely containing my laughter. Well, I moved out, Violet. I couldn't keep sleeping in the bed you've shared with your lovers. She gasped, stunned. I continued. Let's stop pretending. I know about the 2 men you've been with while I was away. Technically, since we're not married anymore, it isn't cheating. But because of your actions, I've reconsidered my decision to renew our vows. I believe it's best for both of us to stay divorced. That's why I've moved out. Her face contorted with shock and fury. No, that's not how this is going to work. We are still married. The divorce was just a sham for tax purposes. I held her gaze unshaken. Violet, it may have started as a sham, but it's legally binding, and I have no intention of reversing it. I'm going to court. We're still married, and that's a fact. You signed those papers right in front of the judge, and this marriage is legally binding. You could try to argue you lied to the court, but that's a crime, and I'm not supporting you confessing to something illegal. Drop it. I see what's going on here. You figured out about Julian and me, so now you've devised this bogus tax divorce plan just to cut me out of your business share. Well, it's not going to work. Oh my God, Violet. Are you telling me you were seeing other men while we were still married? You're damn well aware I was, and I know it was you who sent those anonymous emails to their wives. Hope you're pleased with yourself. You destroyed 2 marriages with your little scheme. Both men are out of their houses now, dealing with brutal divorce proceedings. Both? You mean there were 2? Yes, Violet. You were cheating on me with 2 men. That aside, the divorce stands. Feel free to throw away your savings trying to reverse it, but it's pointless. You may also want to think about how you'll explain your infidelity to our kids. They're incredibly disappointed. You told them, didn't you? How could you do that? What are you so angry about? I needed to explain why we wouldn't be getting back together. Stop the games. We're married, and that's not changing. Whatever happened with Julian and Tim meant nothing. I'm in love with you. I know I made some mistakes, but I'm ready to be the best wife I can be. That's great, Violet. I'm glad you recognize your mistakes. The next man you marry will benefit from that wisdom. I haven't told your parents yet, by the way. I'll leave that to you unless you'd prefer I do it. My mom was shocked, honestly. She couldn't believe you'd go behind my back. I had to show her some milder video clips just to convince her. She wanted me to tell you you're not welcome at Thanksgiving or Christmas or any family event, and if she ever sees you again, she mentioned she might slap you. Violet went on about me throwing away our marriage, begging for another chance. I left her in the house, sobbing and swearing at me. She even tried to overturn the divorce decree. When that failed, she filed to change the divorce terms. Watching her in court was ridiculous. She openly told the judge I knew she'd been with 2 men for over a year, accusing me of orchestrating the divorce just to avoid sharing my assets. She must have forgotten her parents and our kids were sitting right there in the courtroom when she said all that. After ruling against her, the judge gave her a lecture on infidelity and owning up to her own mistakes. When her parents confronted her, she claimed I was leaving her for another woman to avoid splitting my business with her. That didn't go over well. Her mother ended up slapping her in frustration. Violet turned to Jennifer and Derek for support, but they both turned away, cutting her off. None of them wanted anything to do with her after that hearing. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel. Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. Owen Lee carefully parked his car, letting the last notes of his favorite song fill the silence before he turned off the engine and stepped out. He looked up at the building, where the neon sign glowed against the evening sky, sparking a sense of pride within him. As he walked inside, he nodded to the security guard in greeting and headed to his corner office on the top floor. Recently, his CFO had brought excellent news. The company's valuation had reached $30 million, and interest from investors and venture capitalists continued to grow. Despite tempting offers, Owen felt no urge to sell the company. His passion for his work, his team, and the company left him with no desire to part with it. Owen's life had settled into a peaceful and happy rhythm. His relationship with his wife Riley was warm, and together they enjoyed the fruits of the years they had poured into building the company from scratch. Life hadn't always been easy, but now they could afford the comforts they had once only dreamed of. Riley worked part-time as a marketing consultant from home, a flexible schedule she appreciated. Tall, with bright red hair and a fit figure, she exuded a natural beauty that endlessly captivated Owen. Their physical connection had always been strong, although Owen had noticed it waning over time, from several times a week to more sporadic moments of intimacy. He couldn't help but notice that Riley had been increasingly engrossed in her phone, messaging someone he couldn't identify. One day, when he wanted to check a sports score on her phone, he found it now had a password, a change that surprised him. They had discussed her decreased interest in intimacy, and Riley reassured him it was just fatigue and natural age-related weariness, reminding him of how deeply she loved him. They talked about starting a family, and although Riley wasn't overly enthusiastic, she agreed to stop taking birth control for 3 months. Owen felt hopeful, believing she shared his desire, although he sensed some hesitation in her mood. As he reflected on all this in his office, Owen noticed his close friend and VP of sales, Grayson Lewis, walking in looking unwell. Grayson was an old friend from college and a former high school teammate. Despite their professional roles, they had a close bond. "Hey, boss," Grayson greeted him with a weary smile. "I'm feeling awful. Seems like the flu. If you don't mind, I'll head home, rest up, and be back tomorrow." He added that he'd finished the proposal for the new climate control project. Owen nodded to him. "Take care, Grayson. Hope you feel better soon." Returning to his work, Owen realized that the latest version of an important file was saved on his home computer. Instead of going home immediately, he decided to ask Riley to send it. However, when he called the home phone, it went straight to voicemail. He tried her mobile, but it was off, which struck him as unusual for a weekday. With no other choice, he decided to drive home to retrieve the file himself, figuring he'd be there in 15 minutes. The road was quiet, and good music played on the radio under the warm sun, but as he turned onto his street, his pulse quickened at the sight of a familiar car parked outside his house. It was Grayson's car. Owen parked on the street and approached the house quietly. The ground floor was silent, with no usual signs of activity. Riley's office was empty, as was the kitchen. Then he heard voices and muffled sounds coming from the direction of the bedroom. A deep sense of dread washed over him as he began to grasp what might be happening. Moving silently, he took a knife from the kitchen counter and went upstairs. Stopping out of sight, he listened to the conversation between Riley and Grayson. He heard Riley's voice, laced with worry and tension. "Grayson, we can keep this up a bit longer, but Owen's starting to suspect something. I just can't be with him as often. It just feels wrong after being with you." She confessed that her affair with Grayson had been a way to satisfy desires she'd struggled with, and a final attempt at self-exploration before committing herself to family life with Owen. "Once we're done here and after the conference, it'll all be over," she said, making it clear that she intended to end their clandestine relationship. Owen suddenly had a flash of memory. 2 weeks ago, Riley had casually mentioned her plans to attend a marketing conference. Now he remembered that his close friend and colleague Grayson was also supposed to be at a sales conference in the same city that weekend. All the puzzle pieces fell into place, and an unpleasant realization overtook him. Determined, Owen reached for his phone, turned on the camera, and quietly approached their bedroom door. What he saw froze his blood. There, right in front of him, Riley was sitting with Grayson, her face radiant, fully immersed in the moment. A surge of anger overcame him. Without thinking, he stormed into the room, recording with one hand and holding a knife in the other. He grabbed Riley by the hair, pushing her away from Grayson and throwing her onto the bed. Her eyes widened in terror as she recognized him. "Owen, wait! This doesn't mean anything." When she tried to reach out to him, Owen's gaze grew harder and his grip on the knife tightened. "Both of you, sit on the bed, now, and stay silent if you don't want to find out what this knife can do," he commanded. They, trembling, obeyed, huddling together, wrapped in the bedsheet. Riley broke into sobs, and Grayson stammered in an attempt to explain. "Owen, please, it's just physical. It doesn't mean anything, it's just a release," he muttered. Riley, through her tears, echoed him. "Owen, I love you. It doesn't mean anything. Just one last time before starting fresh. Please, it doesn't change my feelings for you." Owen's face twisted in disgust. "How can you say that?" he hissed. "You've shown me what our marriage means to you. You turned everything into a joke, humiliating me in my own home, with my own friend. And now you expect me to comfort you?" He took a step back, recoiling. "I can't even look at you." Riley's face contorted with pain, her body shaking. Owen's words cut her like a knife. He had always protected her, always placed her above all else. In the chilling silence, Owen took out his phone and dialed a number. "Hannah, it's Owen. You need to see this." He sent the video, his voice trembling. "Grayson cheated on you too. I thought you deserved to know. I'm sorry." Hanging up, he turned to Grayson, his gaze filled with contempt. "Tonight, your family won't be waiting for you at home. You betrayed not only me, you betrayed them as well. I'll give you one chance. Tell the truth. When did this start, and how many times have you lied to me?" Riley tried to intervene, desperately attempting to put an end to the agony. "Owen, please, it doesn't matter anymore. It's over." Owen's glare silenced her. She shrank back, pressing herself against the headboard, tears streaming down her face as Grayson began to speak. "Please, Owen," Grayson began, his voice barely audible. "I don't want to lose our friendship or my job. With Riley, it just happened. It doesn't mean anything. It happened only 5 times. The first time was at those conferences. We met for dinner, had some drinks, things got out of control. The next night was the same." His voice trembled as he confessed. "A month later, Riley called when you were away. She invited me to your home. We did it in your bed. She said it added excitement, a sense of risk. And a few weeks later, we met at a hotel." Each word was a hammer blow, shattering the last remnants of Owen's faith in his friend and wife. He stood there, listening to the confessions, feeling the last traces of trust slip away, leaving only bitterness and betrayal. "She called me recently and asked me to pretend to be sick so we could spend time together. She felt such a strong pull toward me that she wanted me nearby, lying next to her, fulfilling needs she didn't dare to voice. We agreed to meet one last time at the conference next month, our final 3 nights together to say goodbye. Both of us understood the weight of our actions, felt overwhelming guilt, and knew how wrong it all was, especially in regard to you, my family, and everyone involved. Riley knew that you were hoping to start a family soon. She even planned to stop taking birth control. We both agreed. It had to end here. We would go back to being the devoted partners we had sworn to be. Owen, it pains me deeply to apologize to you. Looking back, I realize just how misguided my actions were. I may have destroyed my marriage, your marriage, and possibly even my career, and it all depends on whether you can forgive us." Riley looked into Owen's eyes, her regret obvious, and admitted, "Yes, Owen. I succumbed to something new, something thrilling. It had nothing to do with any lack in you. I love you, truly. You're the only person I've ever loved. I want to live with you, to build a family, to grow old together. You treated me so well, made me feel needed. Yes, there was excitement with Grayson, but it doesn't compare to what I feel for you. Please don't let one terrible mistake destroy everything we have. I cherish these 16 years of our marriage." "It meant nothing," she insisted desperately. Owen's pain was almost palpable. "Nothing? Do you really believe that? Do you understand what this is doing to me? How could you think that being with another person would have no impact on our marriage? The lies, the betrayal. How am I supposed to just forget it? How can I ever feel the same knowing you could disregard our bond like this? This wasn't a simple mistake. It was a conscious choice, over and over. For the first time, Riley felt the full weight of her actions. She had convinced herself it was only physical, something harmless that wouldn't affect their relationship. But hearing Owen's words, she realized just how far she had drifted from him, without fully understanding it. Although she loved him, she had allowed that distance to grow. Perhaps it was the guilt she tried to ignore that had slowly eroded their relationship. She had never thought the affair would come to light. Owen's trust had been so strong, and she assumed it would remain unshaken. Foolishly, she had believed he would forgive her, that she could make him forget, with time, love, and maybe even children. But now she saw how naive she had been, how she had distorted reality to justify her actions. She had inflicted a deep wound on the one person with whom she truly wanted to build a life. Her heart sank. Had she destroyed everything? How could she even attempt to make things right? All she could do was look at Owen, her voice barely audible as she pleaded, "Owen, I am so sorry for everything I've put you through. I wasn't thinking. I never meant to disrespect you. Hurting you was the last thing I wanted." Owen's face was a mix of pain and anger as he raised his phone and replayed the video of her saying Grayson's name. "And you still say you didn't mean any disrespect? You knew exactly what you were doing," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. He turned to Grayson, his tone icy. "Your career here is over. Don't bother coming in tomorrow. You're fired. Now get out of my house." Grayson rose to leave, and as Riley moved to follow him, Owen's furious voice stopped her. "Stay right where you are," he commanded. She remained there, feeling the full extent of his pain, now mixed with seething anger. "What have I done?" she thought, realizing she had destroyed something beautiful with the one who had always looked at her with love. Grayson, hastily gathering his belongings, left the room and disappeared into the night. Owen's eyes filled with tears as he looked at Riley. Pain and betrayal were mixed in his gaze. Riley crawled out of bed trying to reach him, extending her hand in comfort, but he quickly backed away, brandishing a knife forward as though this gesture could keep her at a distance. In his eyes she saw her reflection, a traitor, a liar, someone who had shattered the sacred trust of their relationship. Overwhelmed with guilt, she ran to the bathroom, locked the door, and with trembling hands turned on the shower, collapsing onto the floor. All she could hope for was that a bit of distance would help Owen calm down and that he would be ready to talk once he had cooled off. Under the hot streams of water, her tears blended with the shower's flow. She wanted to believe this might somehow wash away her guilt. After what felt like an eternity, she dried herself off, put on a robe, and slightly opened the bathroom door, prepared for any outburst of anger from Owen. But instead, she was met with an ominous silence. She stepped into the hallway, feeling the emptiness press down on her like a heavy weight. Desperate to make things right, she decided to give Owen space and sleep in the guest room until he was ready to talk. But as she passed through the bedroom, she saw open drawers from which his belongings had disappeared and an almost empty closet. His 2 large suitcases were also gone. On the bed, a carving knife lay embedded deep into the mattress, a silent yet undeniable statement. Owen was gone. All she could do was hope he was safe and that he'd answer her calls in a day or two. Burdened with regret, she went to the guest room, curled up, and sobbed herself into a restless sleep. Meanwhile, Owen spent the night on the couch in his office's conference room, tossing and turning sleeplessly. He had instructed HR and security that Grayson was no longer permitted in the building. The next morning, Grayson arrived at work, assuming things might have cooled down a bit, but security quickly escorted him out, warning that any further attempts to enter would lead to a police call. Back at his desk, Owen sat alone, engulfed in the pain of losing his marriage. He once felt a profound connection with Riley, but now it felt as though that connection had vanished, leaving only empty pain. Whatever emotions he felt, anger, jealousy, sadness, None could erase the bitter truth. Riley was no longer his true partner. The dream of children once cherished now seemed impossible. Their life together was over. With resolve hardened by heartbreak, he called the CFO to discuss the company's future and the steps he'd taken. The CFO, shocked by the news about Riley and Grayson, strongly advised Owen to step back and give himself time to recover before making serious decisions. But Owen was unwavering. The next morning, Riley woke up feeling the full weight of her actions. Owen's face, hollow and wounded, flashed before her eyes, filling her with deep shame. "How could I have done this?" she thought, repulsed by herself. A meaningless fling with someone she barely cared for had jeopardized her marriage, a marriage to the only man she truly loved. She struggled to believe the damage she had done to herself. Determined to make things right, Riley vowed to do everything to win Owen back, to restore what they once shared. She picked up her phone and dialed his number, but the call immediately went to voicemail. Leaving a message, she whispered, "Owen, I'm so sorry. I love you. And I know I hurt you. I'm willing to do anything to fix this, to be the wife and mother you deserve. Please call me." Days passed in silence. On the third day, desperate to hear anything from him, she called his assistant, Brenda. Brenda, who respected Owen and knew the situation, called back with his message. He needed space and would reach out to her when he was ready. Riley clung to this small hope, convincing herself that this just meant he needed time. But her hope was fragile. Finally, Riley contacted Grayson to confirm what she had feared. Owen had already fired him. Rumors had reached her that Grayson's wife had kicked him out, leaving him no choice but to move back in with his parents. He seemed eager to meet with Riley and talk, hoping to discuss the possibility of Owen forgiving them. But she quickly shut him down, demanding he keep his distance and stating she wanted nothing to do with him. Though she placed most of the blame on him, she knew deep down that her own guilt was just as strong, if not stronger. She couldn't understand why she had risked everything she had with Owen, feeling the full weight of her actions' foolishness. After a week of waiting for any sign from him, Riley could no longer bear the silence. She tried calling Owen on his mobile, only to find his number was disconnected. When she called his office, she was told he was unavailable and advised not to call again. This only strengthened her determination to find him. Initially, Riley had planned to keep their affair a secret, assuming that Owen would want to avoid any scandal within the family and among friends. But now, desperate for any news, she began reaching out to Owen's friends, asking if they knew where he was or how he was doing. Each gave the same response. They knew nothing and had been instructed to stay out of his personal matters. The cold indifference of their replies made her suspect that Owen had told them about her betrayal, intensifying her shame. As a last resort, she reached out to Owen's parents, hoping he might be staying with them, but they hung up as soon as they recognized her voice. When she called back, her calls went straight to voicemail. Undeterred, Riley went to Owen's office and managed to persuade security to let her into the lobby. Soon, Brenda approached her with a stern expression and asked why she was there. Struggling to maintain her composure, Riley said, "I want to talk to my husband. He should at least respect me enough to hear me out." Brenda's response struck her deeply. Respect? The kind of respect you showed him and your marriage? "Maybe you should reflect on what you've done," Brenda added coldly. "In any case, Owen no longer works here. He sold the company, left, and made it clear that you're not to receive any information about him. Now please leave the premises, or I'll call security to escort you out." Stunned, Riley returned home, trying to process what she'd heard. Sold the company? Left? It seemed unbelievable. Why wouldn't he talk to her? She opened her email and, filled with guilt and remorse, wrote a long apology, sending it to both his personal and work addresses. But the email bounced back as undeliverable. In the following weeks, Riley exhausted every option, calling his parents, only to find her number blocked. She spent hours in the guest room alone, feeling the crushing silence of Owen's absence. A month passed without a word from him, plunging her into a fog of loneliness. When all else failed, she hired a private investigator, who soon provided a brief report. Owen had indeed sold the company, likely for more than $30 million. He had closed all their joint accounts, canceled their shared credit cards, and disconnected his phone, internet, and email. He sold off valuable items, left the city, and, surprisingly, paid off the mortgage on their house, fully transferring it to her. Despite the investigators' efforts, no one from Owen's circle shared additional details. 3 months after Owen's disappearance, a courier delivered an envelope to her home, signed in his handwriting. Heart pounding, Riley opened it, hoping for some kind of clue. Out first came his wedding ring, followed by legal documents and a photograph cut into strips. Piecing it together, she recognized it as their wedding photo, intentionally sliced up. She burst into tears, but after the painful moment, gathered the strength to look at the remaining contents of the envelope. Inside, she found a letter and a flash drive. She began reading Owen's letter, her hands trembling. "Riley, I know you've been searching for me, hoping to talk, hoping I might forgive you. It seems you believe this was just a mistake, that we could move past it, that you could break our vows, betray my trust, and somehow we'd go back to what we had. I was stunned that you could deceive yourself so thoroughly, thinking we could ever restore even a fraction of what we once had. Now I realize that you never truly loved me, not the way I loved you, if you could betray me so easily, as if it meant nothing to you. You didn't even seem to grasp the unbearable pain you caused me. No one has ever hurt me so deeply, and the fact that it was done by the person I held above all else makes forgiveness impossible. Our trust is shattered, and even the thought of being close to you again, of holding you, feels inconceivable. Perhaps you've already erased those memories, or maybe they never meant anything to you. If that's the case, I've attached a video, a recording of you and Grayson, the moment that destroyed our marriage. The words you spoke in that video haunt me. Each time I watch it, they tear me apart all over again. Friends and family blamed me for leaving and didn't understand my silence, so it's clear you never confessed to what you did. In response, I showed them the video and wrote a letter, revealing the truth about the affair so they would understand why there's nothing left to fix. I was torn to pieces, and in that suffering, I sought some form of revenge. I'm not proud of it, but I saw no other way. From today on, you will never hear from me again. You won't see me. I won't return to our home, our town, or possibly even our state. I may never fully understand why you did what you did, what drove you to take this step. I hope you find the answer before you enter into any serious relationships, and that my pain serves as a reminder not to repeat those actions. Someday, I hope to leave behind this torment, shame, and humiliation. I want to look back on the early days of our love without bitterness. Maybe, over time, my hatred will turn into indifference, or perhaps I'll find forgiveness or understanding within myself. But even if that day comes, you will never know. Maybe none of this matters to you, but I'll never know for sure, and that uncertainty will stay with me. Goodbye. Inside the envelope were the final documents titled Dissolution of Marriage. But at that moment, through her tears, Riley could barely make out the words before she sank to the floor. 7 years had passed since Owen disappeared, as he promised in his letter. Riley hadn't received a single piece of news about his life, health, whereabouts, or even his well-being. Owen showed more than generosity in the divorce, leaving her the house instead of any further financial support. Her lawyer said it was the best offer she could expect, as the $30 million Owen made from selling his company were on foreign accounts, beyond any legal claims. Not that Riley cared. She felt she deserved nothing and accepted what Owen deemed fair without objection. At first, life was unbearably hard. Friends and family had seen the video of her and Grayson, caught in her own marital bed. She began to understand the full weight of the pain she had caused Owen, and realized that he showed the video to dispel any lingering questions for those close to them about the future. The shame and humiliation of her loved ones seeing it wounded her deeply, but she knew it couldn't compare to the pain she had inflicted on him. Overcome with guilt, she took her parents' advice and sought a therapist, hoping to cope with the grief and depression and to start rebuilding her life. She went on a few dates, but each one felt shallow and awkward. Her defenses were too high for anyone to break through. Nothing went beyond these strained interactions, and on the rare nights when she sought solace in physical closeness, it only reminded her of how low she had fallen. What once might have brought comfort now felt hollow and degrading. When Owen left, he took all the photo albums, leaving her with no physical reminders of their life together, no photos, no material mementos. And with each passing year, the image of his face, his voice, his warmth, his gentle touch, all of it slowly faded into the background of her life. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.